Now we are live. All right. So we'll take a second and tag some people that whoever you like to tag, and I'll tag all of you as well. It won't show up on your Facebook for probably about 15 seconds. So take a few minutes and tag some people. Yeah. If you guys are watching right now, which you probably are not, give us a second because I don't even think it popped up on Facebook yet. But we are going to take a second and tag some people on our pages. Want to get as much participation as we can. It still hasn't popped up for me yet. I think there's about a 15-second delay or something like that, but I'm not sure.
Did you guys tag me yet?
No, because it's not popping up on mine yet.
Oh, okay. So
you can still share it as a watch party though from this page if you go there.
Oh, can you?
Yeah, if you just go to your
there we go. All right. So now I'm in. What's up, Tom? Tom Lemon's on. T Lemon. Tomas Limon. So I'll share.
Okay.
You can still share it as a watch party though from this page if you go there.
Yeah, it looks like we're up there. We just shared the video.
Let's see. Okay, I'm here. I'm going to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to share it? Do I watch party as a post?
I don't know. I don't know if it matters.
All right, we'll check it out.
Hey, Jason, you can go on your thing and tag all of us as co-host. Did you know that?
What do you mean?
So if you go to where your live feed and you hit all the different participants,
yeah,
you can tag people that are viewing it as co-hosts.
Let me see. How do I do that?
So I'm looking at it on my phone. There's a little purple button that has like the people
on the watch party.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if I do that,
all right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Well, that's what's up. Welcome to everybody. Hola, Gretel. How you doing? Hi, what's up, Manny? Manny Vasquez, the pull-up. Gretel says, hola. What's up, fam? Glad y'all are here. Glad you could join us. Looking forward to having a really good discussion. My name is Jason. I am going to somewhat try to moderate this discussion tonight. Looking forward to having a really good discussion. This is somewhat a part 2 from last week. Those of you who joined us last week, thank you. Our hope is that you came back today. We want to pick up kind of where we left off last week. We were hoping for a little bit more open discussion, a little bit more challenging some of the positions. We didn't really get that. So somebody has a little background noise in there. Make sure your Facebook is all the way turned down and it's not open on another screen. And so hopefully tonight we'll be able to engage a little bit more with some of the dialogue and dig a little bit deeper. So if we can just take a second and Jake, if you want to introduce yourself, just a brief little introduction of who you are. Jake the Conservative is what we've named him tonight. So if you want to say something, we appreciate it. Introduce yourself.
How you doing? My name is Jake. I am a quote unquote the conservative here, although it might surprise some people what I believe and think. I was invited over by you guys to represent the conservative evangelical cohort. Might not be the best representation for them, but I'll do my best. And thanks, guys, for inviting me. I appreciate it. I tell people, my friends, that I only talk about 2 things: religion and politics. So if that bothers you, you hate that, then we just ain't really going to be that close of friends. So that's pretty much the truth. So I appreciate the invite. Full disclosure, I am a teacher, high school teacher locally, and cool. I am also a co-pastor of a church located in Normal Heights. Hey, check out my shirt. Hey,
hey, all right.
Okay.
All right. We see you.
So I am a Christian. I consider myself a full gospel Orthodox to the Bible Christian, 100% sincere. evangelical Protestant, whatever you want to call it.
Well, man, super glad that you're here. As soon as he got the invite, and we have obviously like a private chat, so we can kind of talk about, get to know each other and whatever before the thing. The goal here is not to sneak up on anybody, whatever. But man, and this thing it took off. It had a life of its own, man. This chat got really interesting to us, and I said, man, I think tonight is going to be a really good conversation. You actually had a post on your Facebook from a while back that you said very interesting. You just kind of reshared it again. I think it was a memory, Jake. And do you remember kind of what it said? I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, literally 1 year ago today. I basically just said it in my intro, but 1 year ago today I posted it, and the meme says, being taught to avoid talking about politics and religion has led to a lack of understanding of politics and religion. What we should have been taught was how to have a civil conversation about a difficult topic. I wrote on there, I talk about two things, religion and politics. Every once in a while, I touch bases on gardening and literature. I can't help, I have a personality that needs stimulating friendships. I promise I'm not judging you. I just want to get to the truth. And then kind of like hashtag truth seeker, and then ENTP, which is my Myers-Briggs, which is labeled the debater.
Good stuff. Well, man, welcome, man. I'm super happy that you're here, Jake. Thank you for coming, bro. Super cool. Stephen the Heathen, who are you, sir?
Stephen the Heathen, aka Chaz Hines, San Diego native, currently reside in Arizona. I want to make a distinction from last week. I think you labeled me an agnostic. So I don't know if that's a label, a description, or a title, but I won't succumb to that. Like I don't want to be labeled as anything. And as far as me being a non-believer, I want to make clear I do believe in something. So I think everybody here on this panel has a specific belief in Jesus, as it were. I believe that some being created everything that we see and touch and hear. So I believe in something, but I just don't make a distinction about that. So I don't want to be labeled agnostic or anything else.
Okay. And the only thing I was saying last week, just the true definition of the word agnostic is someone that doesn't know. The word gnosis is the word knowledge. And then in Greek, when you put the before it, gnosis, really agnostic, it means that you just don't know. It's right. It's not a label. It's really just a truth. You just don't know.
I feel you.
Yeah.
But that would then, to me, denote that someone else does know. And I don't think anybody necessarily knows. I don't believe you know, or anyone on this panel knows. I believe you believe. You feel me? So equally, I don't want to be labeled.
I love it.
That's basically the definition of an agnostic.
So then we will let you
put it in quotes. Just put it in quotes.
Yeah, Stephen the Heathen, aka the unwilling agnostic.
You're not gonna label me.
You can hold me, buddy. Yeah, man, it's good to have you, man. Me and Chaz go way back, man. I've been knowing Chaz ever since we was kids, man. We went to high school together. I knew him since I was about 15 years old, so going on 35 years. So just super happy. But we talk all the time. We have 2-3 hour conversations every time we talk. We talk about everything from cars to religion to whatever. So I'm glad that you're here, bro. And super cool that you're my homeboy. My main man, Angelo, aka G-Lo. What's up, bro? Step in, tap in. Who are you? What you do?
What's happening? I hear you. What's up, everybody? My name is Angelo. For those of you who remember me from last time, I'm also here in San Diego, living in Paradise Hills. The church I attend is called Catalyst Church. We're out here in Paradise Hills as well. I'm one of the pastors there. I'm just here to give my perspective, right? I'm just here to bring me and my voice into this conversation. So let's speak. Let's talk.
I've been knowing Angelo for a long time as well. Man, you guys heard me say this last week, man, and just super, just really value your perspective on a lot of things, man. I believe heavily in accountability as a Christian. I'm also a Christian, unapologetic, no question about it. And so I believe in accountability. So I call Angelo and ask him about stuff. I mean, I believe that's part of how we actually grow together. So I love to hear your wisdom on stuff, man. And I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And last but certainly not least, Johnny D, the liberal Christian, the no non-gun owner. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. I've been knowing. Hey, I've been knowing.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to introduce myself.
Yes,
my
sir.
name is John. My
Sorry.
name is John Darrow. I do live in San Diego, currently in Serra Mesa from Poway. I am not a liberal Christian. I am not a Marxist. I am not a leftist. I am neither of those things. Theologically, I'm actually fairly conservative. Politically, I would probably, like Angelo, lean a little more to the left. I'm probably a little more socially liberal. But my view on a Christian's participation in American politics is probably where we're going to differ a little bit. If Jesus is Lord, then what does that look like for Christians to participate in another kingdom where there is another person deemed as Lord or president or whatever you want to call it? So that's where I would skew a little bit probably differently from others on this thread as far as my political views. It was kind of briefly mentioned. I subscribe to a more neo-Anabaptist theological tradition, meaning there's a high view of Jesus, high view of discipleship, high view of nonviolence. I am a pacifist, but we can get some of those nuances as need be. But that's my label.
That's right.
Steven.
Well, I've known John for a long time too, man. And as I said last week, it's just good to see the trajectory of your faith walk. I've been around to see kind of I would say a metamorphosis or a growth or a change, however you want to say it. And I call John on stuff too. Like just good to hear some of the more like, I don't know, weirder ideologies that I ponder. I call John to help me rein myself in a little bit. Hey, John, do you think it's safe for me to believe in UFOs? And then John actually doesn't call me stupid. He just goes, well, first of all, are you still sober? You know what I mean? It's none of your business. Shut up, Jonathan. But man, so it's good. So let's jump right in to the questions that we have tonight. And the first question that we have is, what is your stance politically and why? And I'll go into we'll go with the same order that we went in to. Let's go in reverse order. I'll start with John and then we'll end up with me. So John, will you begin to answer this question?
Yeah, I mean, well, I kind of already did in my intro, but I'll certainly revisit it. I think, so as far as our stance politically, as a follower of Jesus, that is my beginning point. A lot of us Christians will say our Christology, right? How do we view the person and work of Jesus? If Jesus is in fact Lord, that is a definitively political statement. It's not a spiritualization. It's not a merely religious statement, and how you define it is a political statement. To say that Jesus is Lord is to say that Caesar, Trump, Obama, Putin, Kim Jong-un, whoever you want to call, is not Lord, right? So we believe that as followers of Jesus, we are part of a distinct kingdom. Now, with that being said, I am also placed within an earthly kingdom. So as an American, I do have the ability and the privilege to participate within a reasonable extent within the American political process. I believe that responsibility and that process takes much, much more discernment than is often given. So either you are to choose one side or the other. You're to choose right or you're to choose left. I think Christians as a whole are to reject that polarization, that dichotomy. And as followers of Jesus, we are naturally pursuing a middle road, a middle option, right? And so my stance politically, as I said, socially within an American framework, I probably lean more left. I lean more liberal in that regard, but I also hold what would normally be viewed as typical conservative policies as well. So for me, it's much more nuanced than just simply conservative or liberal. Okay. So that's kind of the big 50,000 foot view of my view.
Okay. Angelo.
Right on. That was a good answer, John. Honestly, I'm gonna steal some of it because some of it's true for me as well. In short, my political view has to align in what I think best fits. When Jesus tells me to love my neighbor as myself, what's going to do that? What legislation? What ticket or what out there is going to allow me to align myself with something that says that is how I would love myself. So I'm going to put my name behind that thing to love my neighbor as well, right? So because of that, I don't always vote conservative or liberal. I vote both. Lately, I found myself more liberal than conservative, though, to be very clear. I found myself more liberal than conservative because I believe a lot of conservative issues have hurt people, honestly. So, yeah, that's really the why. So politically, I'm more in the center, but as of late, maybe the last 7-8 years, I found myself leaning more to the left than I have to the right. But I wouldn't call myself a liberal or conservative.
Okay. That's fair. Mr. Chaz, Stephen the Heathen.
I pondered this question and I've worked it down to about a 45-minute.
Well, I have power over the mute, so you can get cute if you want to. We'll move on without you.
I don't want to get over explaining, but I just want to be very, very concise. Politically, you have politics and you have political. I have a disdain for politics, for our political system. I have an extreme disdain for it, and I'm extremely disenfranchised with the notion of our political system. Politics, I understand. Quid pro quo, I understand. So my political stance is to not participate in our political system. I don't vote. As a matter of fact, I don't even really pay that close attention to most of it. It keeps my blood pressure down to not do so. Whether I'm more conservative or more liberal, I mean, it would be issue to issue. But just like I stated with my desire not to be labeled when it comes to my beliefs, like I'm a BS sniffer. I see BS all around because politics, like religion, and I don't mean to attack anybody here, but I mean, we're talking. I'm not beholden to Jesus, nor am I beholden to a party. So I feel free to move about the cabin as I wish because I don't answer to anybody except what I think are humanist views, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Do you put your seatbelt on when there's turbulence?
No, it's because it's like a roller coaster. I don't. I see the sign go on. I hear the stewardess or whatever they call them now tell me to, but I don't. I'm a risk taker.
Okay, I like it. Good, thank you. Jake, the conservative teacher,
flight attendant,
yeah, / gardener / whatever you fancy yourself. You got the Rasta hat on, bro. Do you smoke marijuana? Is that part of your religious tradition?
It is a sacrament in some para-Christian religions, but I do not. In Rastafarianism, they believe that you kind of reach a state of enlightenment when God returns, and He makes everyone actually feel high, like you literally have the feeling. So them smoking marijuana is essentially heaven on earth. But no, I don't believe that. I don't grow it. I don't like marijuana, what it does to people, what it does to young people's minds and students. And I don't like the corruption that it's brought about in the United States and in places like Mexico, where we've lost more people, almost double the amount of people who died in Vietnam have died in Mexico due to a drug war, largely because of our consumption. So no, I don't like drugs. As a matter of fact, one time I was walking the block right around here and I found a stash, bro, in a sealed envelope of blunts, and they were perfect. And, I used to smoke before I was a convert, but I looked at them and I tell you, man, I had a little bit of temptation right there, a little bit. And,
thanks for being real. Thanks for keeping it
on myself, like no one would know, straight up devil stuff.
Then all of a sudden, did you start feeling the cataract? He was like, man, I got irritable bowel syndrome all of a sudden. You
glaucoma started acting up immediately.
My glaucoma tripping.
No, but I realized that was probably just a demonic thing. And I have little girls, you know what I mean? And I got a family and I'm a leader. And plus I hate it, it was just a temptation. So I threw it away. And I'm very proud I did that. But no, man, I don't like drugs. I know that was a joke, but
no, it's good. What is your stance politically and why?
That's a loaded question. So it's changed over time. So when I had a state education, so I went to a public school and then had a state education with my bachelor's degree. I got a degree in English in St. Louis. Kind of grew up in Ferguson and Florissant, neighboring Florissant and neighboring Hazelwood, North County, we call it. And they had me convinced, man. And I've always been pro-life since I became a Christian because of personal reasons. So I called myself a pro-life Democrat. And then I moved to California, and I kind of saw what I consider the pinnacle of liberal ideology and leftist ideology in Berkeley and Oakland. And where I worked at was a place called Richmond. I worked at a high school there, and I kind of realized, man, the result of these ideologies are absolutely heinous. And so I reneged on my Democrat kind of stance, and I became more of like what would be called a libertarian, but I'm a pro-life libertarian. I think that libertarians are hypocrites in their ideology because they're pro-choice. And as a matter of fact, they changed their platform from the text of the Declaration of Independence. They switched it a little bit so that they could be pro-choice. They changed the verbiage from, all people have inherent rights to all born people. And so I actually wrote them a letter. It was published on Live Action, challenging the party on that hypocrisy and that nonsense ideology. But, so as long as the libertarians are pro-choice, I'll never be a libertarian. I've never voted pro-choice. I never will. I think that it's barbarian insanity. I think that, it's a Holocaust. So we could talk about that later. So where I stand now, I guess you could consider me more of a constitutionalist. I think that the original founders of our country did a great job. They kind of understood human nature. They obviously set up the greatest country in the world that leads all other countries at this time. And not the way that the Romans did, but an ideological dominance. And that has actually freed much of the world from poverty. And so I'm a regular old kind of conservative. So I don't really like where Republicans have gone in particular areas. I hold more to like the ideology than sometimes a lot of Republicans. And I could give you examples if you want. But so I have, my personal understanding of it. I do my best, and I read up on people who are actual conservatives, and I find them the intellectual leaders of the culture right now. I think that the leftists have gone off the rails. They don't make coherent arguments. They could never win a debate. They don't win debates. They don't debate because they don't like other people talking. And so I'm like a hardliner as far as I see very little good in the left. I can only think of one or two policies that I think are beneficial on the left side of politics. And I see a high amount of freedom and justice and life on the other side. So that's my view. And I got reasons for all that too. And I could break it all down for you guys if you want, if you don't know what a conservative is,
Well, we'll get into that. There's some good questions. I want y'all to know I'm paying attention to these questions that are coming up here in the feed, but I just wanted to give everybody a chance to sort of introduce where they're coming from politically, religiously, non-religiously, or whatever, just so we could kind of frame frame the discussion. So we will be answering some of these questions, really good ones. I wanted to send a shout out to my nephew, Caleb. What's up, Caleb? He's watching right now with his mom. What's up, Tosh? So for me, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm kind of I have some really conservative Christian views, but they're not conservative as somebody else would think. I have conservative views when it comes to certain issues, and I have liberal views when it comes to certain issues. I'm very mainline when it comes to what I believe as a Christian. I hold to Christian tenet to the what do you call that? I'm a fundamentalist when it comes to like what I believe as a Christian. The reason why it's difficult to label myself and to talk about these things now is because of what I believe evangelicals have done to what it means to be Christian. I see so much hypocrisy, public hypocrisy in what it means to be a Christian. I see that evangelicals have aligned themselves with the government to think that, somehow President Trump is a Christian that supports Christian values. I think that's utter and abject hypocrisy. So I don't call myself an evangelical because of what it means to people. But I am a Christian in that I follow Jesus Christ. The things that I believe Jesus would stand for are the things that I stand for. I also believe in accountability. So I realize that some things that I believe could be wrong. So I have people in my life that I call that you know what I mean, that I can ask about certain things, because some stuff I don't know how I feel. And a lot of things that I felt at one point, I don't feel anymore. And so I think it's really difficult for Christians to have conversations in light of where we are in America, because of Christians and Christians so-called aligning themselves with a particular political party, as if that political party carries the weight of what it means to be a Christian. And when that happens, a person is forced to be hypocritical in the things that they believe. You're forced to be hypocritical. And when people ask questions about why you align yourself with the party the way that a lot of evangelicals do, there are many who don't have the capacity to be able to answer. And when they do, their answers are just subpar, and it just makes Christianity look stupid. So I believe that. So
you're not referring to last week, are you?
I'm talking about in general, last week, and any time it happens all the time. It happens all the time. It doesn't matter. Like, and I just think I think it's wrong. I think if you believe something, you ought to stand for it. Let me throw a couple of things out here. So Kyra, squared away. Kyra's a doctor. She's really big into stats. She's a statistician. And that's what she does. She studies poverty and effects of all these kinds of things around the county. She's highly educated, man. This sister's really squared away. She said Jesus was not a middle of the road or moderate person. That's why he was killed. Whether you can be in the center depends on where the middle is. I think, man, that's I mean, that, you know what I'm saying?
So real quick, I feel like she was responding to my comment, and I want to be very clear on, again, what we mean by middle of the road and moderate. Jesus was not an American, and I don't mean to sound condescending in that statement, but he was not an American. So the polarization we have within American politics to say that he was not in the middle, he's either left or right, is largely the problem that we're running into. Is that, as you already mentioned, Jason, most evangelicals on the conservative right, they're throwing all in. There's a fear, there's a danger that if you were to give up any sort of any of those core aspects of what it means to be a conservative in this country, you're giving up your faith. It's almost become synonymous with that. Right. And to Jake's point, right? If somebody decided they wanted to be pro-choice, is as if they have to give up their entire evangelical commitments. And so what I'm saying is that Jesus is Lord is a political statement. It is a politic in and of itself. Right. It is essentially saying that through the risen Christ, he is creating or reestablishing, if you will, what it means to be properly human. We believe that our anthropology as Christians is that God created man and woman in essential perfection, and that through sin everything was been corrupted. Right. So we see in Jesus a fulfillment of that, a regathering, a renewing of human flourishing in this world. And so we are then, as the church, as his visible and physical representatives, should be displaying a better way to be human on this planet, whether we are in America, whether we are in Mexico, whether we are anywhere else, right? We're showing that. Now we do that as an American church, as a church in America within an American political framework, right? We are sort of bound, and there are some great things about American democracy, right? There are also some very destructive things. And so as a truly prophetic witness of Jesus, as a church, we are to be standing up to power, and we say, hey, yay, good job you did here. Hey, you know what, over here, you caused many people to be hurt, to be murdered, to be left in poverty, et cetera, et cetera. And so the following Jesus is, as a distinct middle way, is working within the political system that we find ourselves in. So I saw that comment, and I feel like it popped up right after I said that. So I just wanted to be very clear on that comment.
You wanted to say something, Jake?
I just wanted to say that I don't think you can be a Christian and be pro-abortion.
Okay.
And I don't think you can be a true Christian and be pro-war. So here we are. We're at a bit of an impasse.
So
right?
let me say this, and in all fairness, one of the things that that Maestra talked about, she said, if we discuss pro-choice, wouldn't we want women speaking here, since it affects women's bodies? And so I think that's
men's bodies.
What's that?
It affects men's bodies. Men are getting aborted. Male babies are being aborted every day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those zygotes.
Could be.
Could be.
So how about this?
Where religion and science intersect.
How about this?
Just FYI, though, my wife is also a statistician and epidemiologist. She got her master's at Berkeley, so we talk about these things a lot. I'm not.
I find it ironic though how even with people who carry your belief, Jake, and who make the same statements, they make provisions for people that are raped and for people who are told by doctors that their babies are going to be extremely sick or mentally retarded. So I find that ironic that there would be an exception. And I find it ironic that when it's their wife or their daughters, how, again, the evolution of their belief occurs.
But look, you can't judge an ideology on their hypocrites, right?
Well, certainly I can. Certainly I can. Because they're at the forefront.
Then you're never gonna go anywhere, bro. There's hypocrites at the grocery store. There's hypocrites in your neighborhood. There's hypocrites in your own house. But that don't mean that the actual ideology is true or untrue, or whether it's moral or immoral. Like people.
But if the hypocrites are making the decisions at the grocery store for the people in the grocery store, then certainly they should.
Well, let's do this.
That's the politicians. I'm talking about the actual ideology. You know, is it right or wrong to kill a baby?
What if the Constitution were drafted by slave owners? What if many of the drafters of the Constitution, the foundational doctrine of this nation, were drafted by slave owners?
Well, as a matter of fact, Kyra said they codified slavery in the Constitution. Let's get off that topic and let's get on it. So Jake, that was something that you were talking about. You're a constitutionalist, and Kyra says that they codified slavery in the Constitution.
Oh, I didn't even see that. I'm sorry. I was on a whole nother tangent. So if that's the basis of one's political ideology, and as a Christian, how do you parry that? I mean, I don't.
Okay, I can talk on it.
I was wondering about that when you said it, because it's ironic that you said you're a constitutionalist, and I'm not going to indict the Constitution itself, but I'm just wondering, just considering, and what you just asked me, how do you parse that?
Sure. So if you want someone to be perfect, no matter what, if you want someone to be perfect and judge their ideas on their character, you're never going to agree or believe anything of anybody, because no matter what, in some respect, somebody isn't going to align with you, or someone's going to be imperfect and they're not going to go up to their ideals, first off. So second off, slavery was worldwide, absolutely worldwide. The United States, when the United States was established, it inherited slavery. It inherited it. You can't make a social institution go away instantly when you establish something great. It was inherited. So, for example, if there's some kind of revolution and some of these dudes in Texas, carve out their own nation, it's quite possible that all of the things that are wrong in our culture will also still be wrong in that culture. Let's look at Chaz, for example, as we talked about earlier. Chaz was this kind of weird protest because unarmed black men were killed by the police, right? And it's great to protest it. They wanted to carve out an autonomous zone. That's the AZ, autonomous zone. What ended that autonomous zone is that they actually shot 2 unarmed black teenagers, one at point blank, like murder style, like gun to the head, you ain't dead yet, bam, and shot him. You can look it up on videos. They got it on video. So they had great intentions, but they didn't do well at what they wanted to establish. However, what happened in this country and what happened in the West, thanks God, is that although we inherited these sins when we established the country, we eventually did away with the sin. And if you go back and read history and read the founders and read their writings, they were, some of them were for slavery, but not very many of them, even the ones that held slaves. But there was no way out of the system that had been socially established. If you got rid of your slaves, they would be captured and enslaved by someone else. Some of them held on to their slaves because they were afraid of what would happen to them if they let go of them. It's a very, very complicated, and it's very, 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 very short-sighted to judge people on standards that we hold today and not kind of look at it in context.
So wait a minute. I'm sorry, Jason. You said on standards that we hold today. What do you mean by that? Wouldn't those be basic tenets of basic human tenets? And when you say, let's back up. When you say that we're not perfect, that's such a dismissive last week type answer. We're not perfect. If you were going to hire a babysitter and he had a record of child molestation, I don't think you would hire him saying, well, he's made some mistakes in his life. I think there would be a degree that we would have to place on people's quote unquote mistakes. And I think that we're probably judged. We certainly wouldn't mind being judged to the best thing that we did in life. So at the same time, I think we're going to have to be judged according to the worst thing we did in our lives. Certainly if it affected hundreds of millions of people for hundreds of years.
And at the heart of this conversation, though, the problem is not only was it inherited, but slavery was largely a theological, as much as race was a sociological construct, it was largely a theological construct as well. And so for Christians to say, oh, well, they just inherited is absurd. And you know that, Jake. I know that you know that. So to say that they are inheriting,
how is that absurd?
They're inherit. The first
American
established,
we had slavery, but there were some states that never even had it.
Hold on, Val. Hold on. The first abolitionist document came from Mennonites in 1688 in Germantown, Christians that were a part of this country that said this was wrong.
Right.
Okay, George Whitefield, one of the greatest American preachers of the First Great Awakening, arguably brought slavery and made it legal in the state of Georgia. This dude gets a pass, but you just make the statement that if somebody has an abortion, they're not a Christian. Like, do you hear how absolutely absurd that is? And you're not making any. So the 16-year-old girl who, to what Chaz says earlier, gets raped, has an abortion, she's a Christian, or she makes a mistake. Let's tame it down a little bit. She has a mistake, has unprotected sex, has an abortion. She's a Christian in a Christian home. Oh, she's not a Christian. That's absurd. Right, you can't just completely dismiss something as something inherited and say that is justifiable.
I'll give you the double standard. I'll give you the double standard on that one. I do say though, when the country was established, it was a social system in place. You could read on this. Thomas Sowell did a whole chapter on this. He talked about all of the struggle that the founders had when they were dealing with this, and there was a debate. The religious aspect, I believe, was not central to slavery. That kind of came about to keep it going.
100% disagree. Not true at all. We'll continue.
That's fine. Disagree. I can cite a history book. You can cite a history book. But what I'm telling you is it was here. And there was it was a mess. And people were looking at it like, how are we going to get rid of this? The question was, how are we going to get rid of it? Most of the founders were in discussions. They got it in the letters. You can read it in the history books. They wanted to know how to get rid of it. They were watching things like the Haitian Revolution. They're watching race wars going on. They're looking at all this craziness. How are we going to get out of this mess in a way that ain't going to lead to a lot of devastation? And it eventually did lead to the devastation anyways.
So let me ask you. Angelo, you were going to say something. What were you going to say, Angelo?
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, to me, that sounds like they were some cowards and they were afraid to lose some money. That's all I really just heard you say, honestly, because the nation was founded with slavery before we came. From the first time they came over here, slavery was always here. The United States would be absolutely nothing without slavery. I understand that, and I'm here. We sadly we're benefiting from the greatness that the enslaved people did for this country. Right? There is no economic surplus in this country without slavery. I mean, nothing really would exist. So.
What about the virtual annihilation of the indigenous people too, Angelo?
Right, and I should not neglect to say that. And they didn't want to lose that. Like today, the people in power don't want to lose the money. They don't want to lose the power. If we take away, it's cowardice, in my opinion, for them. And this is to say that they didn't know how to get rid of slavery. It would cause devastation. Well, good. You know what I'm saying? Good. As a believer, and we're talking, this is a believer, Christian in politics, I need to stand on what's right. And if I know slavery is wrong, then I need to go ahead and make that stand, even if it costs me money, even if it costs me what my country may or may not become. You know what I'm saying? So if that's my heart, if that's my conviction, then that's where I'm going to stand. You get what I'm saying?
And I'm not picking on you, Jake, but that just as a premise to your ideology today. Like if this is what you base your political stance on today, and your belief, and then contrast it with your belief, like those don't sound like Christians to me.
That's part of the problem. See, to me, I'm like, all right.
Look, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, like you know,
I just want to defend myself though. So, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, that's cool. So I'm curious about the idea that somehow slavery was here, and it was something that was sort of inherited. And I'm just kind of wondering how long.
All over the world for all of history. All of history.
No.
All of history or American history?
All of history has had slaves.
There's no denying that slavery was in other places. We know that. What I'm
even in the Bible, even in the Bible.
Yes. And so what I'm saying is, though, and this is the thing, I could see, like, when you take over a business, if you take over a business that already has employees and, you know what I mean, a standard. I've never taken over a business, but I'm just assuming, right? You got to deal with some of the things that you've inherited, culture, the whole nine.
That's all I'm saying.
Huh?
That's all I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is slavery was not here to the degree that it was here after they sailed thousands of miles and took years to go back and forth to bring millions of enslaved Africans to this continent or whatever, away from their homes, and beat and raped the women and did all the things that they did. And all the while that they did it, they were going to church. They would rape a woman and cheat on their wives and then they would go to church. Yes, sir. And a lot of the traditions, the reason why you have the African Methodist Episcopalian Church is because the Methodist Church wouldn't allow black people, wouldn't allow the enslaved population.
Right. I get that.
The Southern Baptist was here because they broke from the Northern Baptist because Southern Baptists wanted to keep slavery. So my whole point, and they just apologized a few years ago. My whole point is that to dismiss slavery in America as though it was something that was just here in like mass, without it was something that was built upon. America would not be what it is, like Angelo said, had they not brought over the millions of people and killed millions as a result. And we are still feeling the effects of it right now.
But that's a different argument. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, before the establishment of the United States on this continent, the Middle Passage was in play, correct? So first thing we have to understand, does everyone at least agree that does everyone at least understand that slavery is a worldwide phenomenon that predates history?
Absolutely.
We agree on there, okay?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm not talking about sub-Saharan African slavery. I just mean like in general. Right, slavery.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you see a process of how this idea of chattel slavery, sub-Saharan African slavery, how it infiltrated Europe, because they learned it from the Muslim Arabs. Portuguese picked it up. They brought it over and it became a kind of commerce, right? It took over Europe. Europe colonized and it got spread around. Now, they would have made slaves anyway, I agree, but it was just how the world worked at the time. It was commonly accepted, okay? In the long scheme, if you look at the long scheme, who is the culture and the people that debated it? And who are the people that shut it down? And by the way, it was European colonialism and the idea that, the sun never sets on the British Empire that actually shut chattel slavery down in the West, because they had enough control to actually stop the ships in the Middle Passage. They had control, and when the colonies split off and the ones that wanted to hold slavery, they did. So, I'm agreeing with you guys that America had slavery from the beginning, was founded, but it was the Christian ideology that and it was Christians like William Wilberforce and guys like this that in the whole world, in the whole history of the world, it was the Christians and the debates that they had to go through and the working out that shut down slavery. And that's why we don't have slavery today. So you're blaming the Christians because they did it, but y'all should be thinking in the long perspective. Yeah, they're hypocrites, of course. It's terrible. They did terrible things. And some of them were bad. Some of them were for it. Some preachers were against it. Some preachers who were against it had slaves. Some preachers who were for slaves didn't have slaves. There's a big mix. It's not a monolith. We talk about everything like it's just one person and talking to this person. It's a lot of ideas, but it got hashed out and it got ended because of Christians and Christian influence. And that to me is a testament and something positive we can look at in our history, that ultimately Christianity is what resolved that entire issue. And got us at least where we are today.
I agree with that.
That's just history, bro.
Let me ask a question real quick. Not that this isn't important. This is very, very important. But it began with, you can't have an abortion or believe in an abortion and be a Christian. So I'm kind of, and then it somehow
John,
led to that. So I'm kind of curious how that gets.
Man. I mean,
if you want how that ties in.
Yeah, if you want to talk about that, I was trying to jostle you, man. I'm not making that.
No, I'm curious. It's a legitimate question because I know you actually believe that. So I want to hear that.
I switched the topic. One of the women in the comments said, "Why don't you have a woman on to be able to have this issue?" because typically what happens is men always weigh in, and that's one of the arguments. That's one of the public arguments, is that men always weigh in on issues that pertain to women, and how come women can't have a right to talk about stuff that actually affects them? And that's one of the problems. I think that's one of the problems, and one of the reasons why we see such polarizing of some of these issues, because there are things that and even that have been espoused in Christianity, I think, that have led to the polarization of a lot of these issues. And
because it's a white supremacist society.
Yes.
What you're saying, Jake, I absolutely agree with. But the result of that is still a white supremacist society dominated, set up for, dominated by, and as John always says, made for him, for you to win. And that does not include, quote unquote, white women. So I think that that's important in this conversation too. I agree with what you said about how slavery was established, and that essentially it was the Christians that abolished it, for lack of a better term. But what has replaced it? And then look at our political system right now. And we're a nation under God. And our political system at the end of every speech is God bless America. So, you
Steven,
know, and I'm not singling you out, Jay. You guys are all believers. So I'm saying, I'm asking all of you, how do you guys feel about the fact Jake has really highlighted the absolute hypocrisy of Christianity as it pertains to the founding of and the governance of this country from day one till now?
But Steven, can you do me a favor and try to do just
it's funny how we're calling you Steven. His name is Chaz, but that's
sorry. Is not really Steven?
No, it's Chaz. We just call him.
You guys are jacking me.
Sorry, he called himself Steven the Heathen. I'm sorry, man. He made that up last week because he's the heathen. He said that. His name is Chaz.
Listen, answer to either. Don't worry about it. We know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Steven. So let me ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
If like, let's say a man is abusing a woman and he hits her with a chair, what is evil in that situation? The man, right? The person is evil, correct?
Right.
Okay, not the chair, right?
Right.
Okay, this is what I'm getting at. Can we differentiate the object that's used from the actual evil intent? Can we differentiate, in this case, what you were saying is can we differentiate the idea from the person who messes with the idea or tries to employ it incorrectly or as a hypocrite? So in other words, ideas have merit. Ideas have merits. Either they work or they don't. Either there's evil intentions behind the motive or there's not. And we can talk about the idea. If you're talking about people, that's a whole different discussion, because people take ideas and do different things with them. But as far as the idea concerned, for example, if I use math, which is an idea, a very solid form of logic, if I use that to like steal money, it doesn't mean that the math is wrong or evil. You understand what I'm saying? Math is solid logically, but the person using it might have been a hypocrite or been evil or something like that, but that has nothing to do with the idea. So all I'm saying is, the way our country was founded, the people might have been hypocrites, they might have made mistakes, they might have been short-sighted, they might have been cowards, as Angelo said. However, but what about the idea? What has the idea ultimately brought about? The abolition of slavery. Right?
So that idea of, can an idea be inherently bad? Let me ask you this. Can a chair with spikes that's hooked up to electricity, can it be a good chair? A chair that has spikes on the seat when you sit on it and it's electrified, can it be a good chair?
Of course it can. If you're putting somebody who's been tried and they're going to face death on it, then it's an electric chair. Then it's meant to kill someone. It's serving its purpose.
So if a chair, so is it good for?
Oh my God! The chair being thrown.
Hold on.
It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Jake.
No,
I just yacked with John.
Can a chair? This dude. So can a chair like that be good for your daughter ever?
No, of course not. But that's when you attack the idea.
Hold on. Wait. No. So what I'm saying is you're trying to say that chattel slavery, the way that it was used in America, and we're talking about America right now. We're talking about what we had here, because none of us were in Africa or anywhere else where we can say that it was used or not used. We know for a fact that there are things that are here. And I want you to explain how, or anybody to explain, how can chattel slavery be compared to a regular chair or math? and not be compared to a chair with spikes used for the daughter. There's no way.
You're conflating my two comments. You're conflating two comments. You're agreeing with what I'm saying. I'm saying if someone developed an idea that's wrong and evil, we should attack that idea. If they developed an idea that's right and good, we should uphold that idea. So that's the chair, a good chair versus a bad chair, a good idea versus a bad idea. I'm not supporting slavery by any means.
Okay, but the people who
people who use it, whether they're no matter what, it doesn't matter. The idea is an idea on its own. So for an example, Hitler walks outside and he says, "Yo, the sky is blue." Is he right or is he wrong?
Yeah.
Okay,
he's right. Yeah.
He's right. Okay, so
but
Hitler
if he
was
says
right.
it's right,
you can't get mad at me like, "Oh, Jake said Hitler was right." Oh my God. No, look, man, you got to divorce the person from the idea. Does the idea work? Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Slavery, obviously.
Man, black people have been divorcing ideas for 400 years in this country. We tired of divorcing ideas. I feel you. I get you. But we're tired of having all this common sense and all this patience, man.
But I don't feel that.
Especially with regards to Christianity. When are you Christians going to speed up the process?
Right. And I think,
but chat. Sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say like that. The idea of the deformation of whatever slavery was around the world, what we had in America, the idea of that was developed by somebody. The implementation was by someone, was the founding fathers, the same people that created the Constitution.
No, they did not. The founding fathers did not invent American slavery. It was already an institution socially. This has existed, that's it. They did not have a choice. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, when you look at other nations, when you look at America as a nation, that idea of chattel slavery, of raping women, doing the things that we did, and if it existed somewhere else, we will condemn those people as well. But we live in America. What's that?
It was worldwide.
It doesn't. We're talking about America and
what America inherited.
We're talking about what America did.
Were they Christians? Here's my question then: were they Christians? If they say they're Christians, were they Christians?
So let me speak to that. So I agree. I think with what Jake is trying to say, I agree in the divorcing of the idea from the person to a certain extent, but also to your idea, when the idea has been so engulfed into the person that it is almost impossible to separate the idea from the person. We do have to reconstruct things and relook at things. Jake said that some people were responsible for having for participating in slavery, some Christians. The opposite is actually true. Some people were responsible for not participating in it. As you said, it was inherited. It was an entire social construct, and it was absolutely supported by the church and by supposed Christians. So I am with you. I don't want to say Stephen, damn it. I'm with you, Chaz, that the idea of Christianity or who Jesus is, that has to be revisited. Absolutely. One of my biggest problems with American conservatism as we see it today is this need to keep Christianity alive and well in the past as a hero. That is very problematic for a myriad of reasons, of which race is one of them. I'm not even talking about conservative or liberal necessarily. I'm talking about, because now evangelicals are within the conservative Republican bubble. They need that for some reason, right? And it was important even for Trump. I won the evangelicals, is what he says. Is an exact quote. I won the evangelicals. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. He needed that. He used it, and as a power play. So for me, if you want to say I'm liberal, apolitical, whatever, I'm with you, Chaz. We need to relook at Jesus. And my main problem with American conservatives, even liberals for that matter, but even mostly conservatives, is they're starting with the basis of the Constitution. They're starting the basis with political ideology, and they're not beginning with the person and work of Jesus. That, to me, is the fundamental issue. If you are a Christian, you have to begin with the person and work of Jesus. Now, you still may end up as a conservative or a liberal, right? But those are not the beginning arguments. And that is the problem. That's why this whole thing is circular. It goes around and around and around, is because American Christians in general begin with the American part and not the Christian part.
And I
agree with you, Chaz.
Were you going to say something, Angelo?
Yeah, I feel bad because I'm agreeing with John a lot right now. We're kind of on par.
Don't
What
feel
Chad
bad.
said was right, and to be real short, until we divorce America, until Christianity in the United States divorces itself from the United States, until we divorce ourselves from 501c3s, until we divorce ourselves from the ability to have all this money and power, is not going to change. We're going to continue to do things like vote certain ways to keep the money and power in our pockets. And I'm saying our because as much as I dislike some of the things my brothers and sisters in the church do, we are still the church. And if we are still one body of Christ, then I am still part of that one body of Christ. So again, until we divorce ourselves from America in that sense, I don't think it's going to change, Chaz. So I understand what you're saying, Chaz.
Well, and part of the reason why it's not going to change also is because we have divorced ourselves from the willingness to be able to call things what they actually are. And there's a lot of ideology that still exists in the church, which is the dissonance that is there to align ourselves with a particular system that was adopted from the founding fathers that's still here today. There are large parts of our system that are exactly still here today, and those things get passed down by generation. That kind of stuff is generational. Those ideologies are generational. And because people every single day or every Sunday go into spaces where preachers actually don't condemn the things that we see that are still there, residual effects or residue of racism and slavery. And so people say, oh, slavery ended in 1865 by Christians. Well, so maybe legally, but then they formed a whole nother policy. There's a whole nother thing that was invented or whatever. There was, you got redlining that happened. You got Jim Crow, slave codes. You got prison, the 13th Amendment that says slavery is abolished except for when you go to prison. And so now what we've done is in America, the same people who were brought over to this country and enslaved are still being enslaved in prison and those kinds of things. And so every single Sunday in church, this is what frustrates me. And this is why abortion is a huge issue. And I don't agree with abortion. I don't support that. But what I don't agree with also is that we make that the top priority. And my thing is, if you say that you are against abortion, but you don't care what happens when the baby's born, then you're a hypocrite. And so if the only time you speak is how a woman chooses to deal with her body in that particular way, but you don't care about her child once the child is born, then the church is a part of that problem. And so evangelicals have said there's only 3 things that matter. And one of them is abortion. And the other ones have to do with sexuality and marriage. And those are the 3 things. And so my thing is like, we have to stop being a people that only feel like 3 issues really matter. And I think that that's wrong. And that's residual of the mindset that brought slavery to America. I think it's hypocritical.
Can I speak on that?
Jump in. Absolutely.
Is it all right if I steer the conversation back towards our political ideologies in the broad sense? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So those things that you said, abortion, gay marriage, and things like that, that's like the social culture wars. Those are going on. But in the epicenter and the deep parts of conservatism that aren't necessarily socials, a lot of conservatives are libertarians, which means they don't care what you do or what you call what in your own home, as long as you don't infringe on someone else's rights. You know what I'm saying? So that's a huge gamut of evangelicals, even, as I know a lot of these people, right? I know people all over the spectrum. But I think the idea is, I think the first question that you had was, what's your political stance? And what is your stance politically and why? Okay, so I don't think people really understand what it means to be a conservative. So if I could just outline it real quick, it is religious and social, and I kind of have them in the same. I guess I broke it down. If you ask me, it's in 3 categories, okay? And all 3 of these categories are at play in our culture, and they're all incredibly important, and we do stand a lot to lose if they're challenged. And so I'll outline them. The first one is religious social. So I do believe that everyone operates on religious ideals. Chaz, you operate, whether you like it or not, on religious ideals. The idea of God existing or him not existing are both religious ideas. And we have these worldviews that we establish in the West. We establish our worldview based on Christianity. This is where it came about. Whether or not you believe or whether or not you're a Christian, you still operate on a Christian founded, or as probably John would say, Christendom. Christian founded culture. And even the things that you believe and the way that you compartmentalize things are basically a Christian worldview. So and there's things we say all the time that are flat out Christian. So I'm assuming that probably all of us, I don't know, believe that pedophilia is wrong, right? Why is pedophilia wrong? That's a Christian idea. You know, Socrates was killed in part because he wouldn't be a pedophile. That is an idea brought through to our culture from Christianity. That's a Christian idea that taking advantage of a young person sexually is wrong. That's right out of the Bible.
I'm kind of curious, how does Socrates connect to the Christian faith? That was kind of strange.
Well, what I was trying to make the connection of, John, is that pedophilia was so common in the Roman Empire that they actually cited him as doing evil for not being a pedophile, and they killed him. So I'm saying before Christianity, this was kind of like, in the West at least, a widespread thing. The idea that Black Lives Matter, just saying that statement is a Christian statement. I challenge my friends, again, I'm from Ferguson, I know all the frontliners. I'll say to them, you can't tell me Black Lives Matter if you don't believe in God. It matters to who? It matters to who and why? What matters one life over another? You're all going to die. And then the people who remember you are all going to die, you mean nothing. You're stardust, you know? So I think that even that, the idea that a life should matter, is a Christian idea, and that goes all the way down to Christian doctrine of Imago Dei, and John can outline that later. You know, we believe that ultimately we're responsible for our own actions as individuals. That's a Christian idea. So we all have these religions and beliefs. I think that Christianity has the best outline, the best understanding of who God is, and as God was expressed by Jesus Christ. And I know converts, very intellectual people who have come to the conclusion that they see that there is morals that exist in real time in the world, and so they've converted to the faith based on intellect, and they recognize that that these ideas, fundamentally, morals come from religion, and then specifically in the West, Christianity. So, you know, but and Chaz, I don't want to pick on you, man, but I want you to know, like, whether or not, you know, you believe in God or not, you still hold some values, and you still make religious statements and ethical statements of things are right or wrong. And I get in arguments with people all the time about this. So, and I know I want to go forward, but, you know, let me give you another example. I saw in a public school, they raised up the rainbow flag, right? And I was arguing with someone, they shouldn't raise that up. That's a religious statement. And they're saying, how is that a religious statement? You're not telling people that homosexuals exist and LGBT exists, like educating them. You're saying it's good. You're actually placing a positive value on it. Whereas before there might've been a religious negative value on it. But either case, put into value on it or taken away, it's a religious move, because you're insinuating a moral good or a moral evil, which ultimately comes down to religious belief. So I do believe our culture is socially and religiously founded on Christianity. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's led to some really good things. For example, the abolition of slavery. Also, so from that, we also have to accept that we live, no matter where, you are gonna be governed. Without order and government, it is the strong, it's the powerful who basically implement their will in everybody else. So as a culture, we have decided we're going to create a balance here and kind of stop this the best we can. And so basically, the way the conservatives view things is the most evils that have happened on earth as a whole have been from a government. The most oppression on earth has been government ran. So, for example, over the last 100 years, there's been 100 million people murdered by communists for ideological reasons, simply because they weren't communists or they're capitalists or whatever. They're put in gulags. They were wiped out by hunger. So communists have this real bad reputation if you studied it. So the founders realized they saw people as inherently kind of evil and doing bad stuff to each other. So they had this idea to create an American experiment where essentially they would agree to try to stop people from oppressing each other, and especially using the government. Because what happens when you weaponize the government is whoever has the power will use it against someone else, as we saw in slavery. They obviously weren't able to wrap their heads around that one. So our Constitution actually is a system of checks and balances, which is supposed to affirm freedom and agency to individuals and people, and it delineated from Christianity. This idea of liberty and us having fundamental rights, again, it came down from the social religious spectrum into our politics.
Let me just ask you real quick, Jake.
Sure.
So with all that, right? With all that and the things that could come with that, if you outlined the perfect definition of what a conservative is. Do you believe that a Christian would be able to? Do you believe that Christians could create and support slavery the way that the founding fathers did? Do you believe that they could? Do you believe that the system of slavery that was brought here to America, that was created here in America, that was brought to life here, however you want to say it, are you willing to say that the founding fathers in this country were Christian?
I think that, well, again, I can't view people as a monolith. Some of them were Christians. Some of them were just deists.
I understand.
I'm saying that the Christian, the background of Christian culture produced some things. It produced the idea that people have rights. This comes human rights. This comes from the religious belief, Christian belief. That's where we got it. And they took it.
Jason, if I might,
hold on, real quick, Pass, real quick. So, but what I'm saying though is, for these men to bring a system to life in America that included raping women, that included killing.
Where is raping women in the Constitution? It didn't. I'm talking political. You're talking social. They established a political idea.
So it's
different to do social. You can't just establish a social idea. You got to work it.
So in the Constitution, that didn't include black people, right? They wrote a Constitution.
Nowhere in the West, in the whole world.
No. We talking about America. We not talking about the world. We're talking about America. We're talking. That's a scapegoat. In America,
not a scapegoat. I'm explaining to you the history. You can't just look. You can't just say, "Here's my daughter. I don't know where she came from. I just came home one day and she was there." I mean, something happened, right? How do you get to this point?
But no. How we get to this point is that a system was brought here, and people, and what we need, and this is part of the problem. This is the reason why you can have Christians who ride around with Trump flags on their cars supporting a president that supports a system.
Hold on, I got this for John.
Oh, hell no.
There we go. Hold on, man.
So
I can't even wear it.
He just took a turn for the worse.
It's all bad now, brother.
I want to get a picture of that. So check this out though. But what I'm saying though is that and this is part of the problem. I think when it comes to like talking about these hardcore issues and nailing down something that doesn't make sense, there's always a bifurcation. Okay, well, let's go over here. Well, so we're saying that there was.
You're saying it's whataboutism, is what you're saying. What about that?
We're saying in reality, there was a constitution that was created that didn't include black people, right? So this idea of free manhood, humanhood. So when you say all men are created equal, but then what you do is you dehumanize the enslaved men and women, and they're not included in that. So you can still have this system going, even though you've dehumanized a particular part of the population, and you continue to do that. And so, yes, there are Christians, and I thank God for that. I actually found out through my ancestry that a Stanton on my side was known in the 1600s as a strict abolitionist. And one of my relatives is Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was part of the suffrage movement. But these same Christians, don't forget about this. These same Christians gave white women the right to vote in 1920, and black women and everybody else black had to wait 45 more years to get the right to vote. Where was the church in that? Where were Christians at in that fight? Because there certainly were people who were going to church every Sunday who felt like it was okay that white women got a right to vote and black women didn't, and other black people didn't for 45 more years.
They were the heads of businesses and in Congress enjoying their money.
What's that?
The same place a lot of them are now.
What's that? Where?
I said they were in Congress and the heads of businesses and CEOs and stuff enjoying their money.
Facts.
Again, you guys are upset about the hypocrites and the people who again, I believe inherited a social norm. I'm looking at it from the other perspective. I'm saying like that was the social norm of the world. And through Christianity, slavery was abolished. It might have taken a long time, but it did happen. The world is better for it. Man, it's just looking at it the other way.
I mean, to me, I think that's so. So what we have here,
it's true. If there was no Christianity,
for a non-believer though, for a non-believer in Christianity like me, you're not making a good argument to believe
because
you're painting
that language. But the reason it's not a good argument is because it is bullshit. Well, everything, all of that is bullshit. And I'll tell you what, Gretel said right here. Gretel actually had a really good point. Jake, is religion is a social idea. Then how come conservatives are so hell bent on imposing religion upon American citizens when they're supposed to be this liberty of religion? You make the comment about the LGBT flag, but how many conservatives want religion back in the schools? Now, you may not want it, but you are part of a group that does want it. So you can't pluck yourself out and say, oh, no, not me, when you're embodying a political ideology that does want that. And you keep going back to slavery, but white supremacy and black oppression existed well after slavery, and it was upheld by white evangelicals. So you keep going back to that, but it doesn't hold up historically. It doesn't make sense.
It makes total sense. How did slavery, where did the ideas come from that ended slavery? Where did it come from, John?
They didn't come from Christians. That's the bullshit. Where did it come from? You keep saying that it is.
Then where did it come from? Tell me.
It came from abolitionists. Some of them might have been Christians, absolutely. But wholesale Christians rejected the idea because, as Angela already said, it affected their finances. It affected economics.
Name one abolitionist.
American Christians Christianity is synonymous with American capitalism. You take that out, you break the whole system. Yeah. So you can't sit here and say, "Oh, look at
if Jesus is the foundation of Christianity, how long would Jesus have taken?"
I didn't even get to capitalism, which I actually happen to be a big fan of. But John, you're just mad, bro. You're not even making points. Listen, the idea came from
I just didn't make points. You don't like the points.
The moral idea that slavery is wrong came from. So read Uncle Tom's Cabin, bro. She writes in the preface to the book, I am a Christian. Slavery is a great evil. I am writing this book to open the eyes of people in the North to show them how great of an evil it is. And it is said that book led to the Civil War. It was Christians pushing the envelope. I'm not all of them. I'm not saying all of them. It was a debate. It's the Christian idea that ended slavery globally. William Wilberforce almost single-handedly shut down the Middle Passage.
Hey, Jake, but then the second part of my statement, though, Jason, I'm sorry, was that how do you explain Christian support of Jim Crow and civil rights afterwards, redlining afterwards?
Right. What do you do with that? On slavery as you are on abortion, boy, it'd be an entire different story.
So just for the record, I'm anti-slavery too, anywhere. So eventually they got there. It's harder to change a social system. You can't just snap and it goes away. It's how it is.
Who was the first ones that wanted to end slavery? Who were the first ones that wanted to end slavery?
The slaves.
The enslaved people.
Right.
People didn't listen to black people. That William Wilberforce and people like that get credited with ending slavery, and they did not end slavery. They did not do that. It was the enslaved people, and especially the ones that we don't hear about that killed a whole bunch of white people or whatever. We don't hear nothing about stuff like that, and that's what we don't hear about the people who there were hundreds of slave owners, of enslaved people of owners of enslaved people that were killed to end slavery, and that was part of but they never get credited with that type of stuff. And here's what I'm saying: we do not see in mass, or do we? Do we see in mass the type of Christians who were abolitionists? Because, and I would say no, because if we did, we would not still have a prison industrial complex that enslaves more than 50% of the African-American population, who commit crimes at roughly the exact same rate as white people, who get sentences that are 10 to 50 to 100 times more than white people on a regular basis. If evangelicals, who are supposed to be a majority, which I don't even think that is, but if that's the case, where are the evangelicals that are abolitionists that are showing up to get, especially these supposed conservative judges that everybody's bragging that Trump is, sorry about that, was a Freudian slip. Trump that Trump put into office or whatever. Where are they in the abolition of slavery? If evangelicals have been credited with so much of the stuff. Where are they at in terms of being judges? How come they're?
And if it takes 300 years for Christians to abolish something so socially abhorrent as slavery, then going back to last week's question, how do you fare in being politicians? Why would I trust a Christian to be a politician?
Again, slavery was worldwide. You know, I encourage everybody, I encourage you guys to go get some history on this. You know, Thomas Sowell, who's an African-American man, wrote a really great book called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Chapter 3, it's about the world history of slavery. You know, slavery is not an American only thing. It came from somewhere. It has a history. Again, I'm going to say it again. If it weren't for Christianity and Christians, slavery would still exist today all over the world. It's the Christian ideas implemented by Jesus himself that eventually permeated the culture. So look, Chaz, tons of people who didn't believe in God had slaves. Tons of them. Who made them not have slaves? Who made them not have slaves? It was the Christian idea that came over. And you know, there were revolutions. You know, the Haitians had a revolution, and they killed all the French masters, you know, all the white dudes. But that did not help end slavery. That actually made everyone bunker down longer, you know, in the Americas.
The Haitians are still owned about $26 billion from France for the money.
Totally believe that. But I'm saying, I know it's messed up and it's sloppy, but can you guys at least understand my point that it is the Christian idea of human rights and liberty that came from Christianity, that's founded on a religious belief that
I don't know if I believe that.
Then where'd it come from?
I don't know if I believe that. Let me go to this. You said earlier that I live in a Christian nation and that I thus have Christian ideals.
I did not say that. I said that everything that you believe is permeated by ideas that stems from Christianity.
Okay, everything. Look, if you look up statistically at kids who grow up in same-sex households, right? Take a kid who grows up in a household with two mothers. Statistically, by and large, they grow up to be heterosexual. So I don't know. I don't know that. Well, I just throw it in to say that I don't think that that's necessarily true, accurate what you're saying, and I think that it's arrogant. And again, I'm not talking just to you. I'm talking to all Christians. I think it's arrogant to even imply that somehow just good human nature and Christianity go hand in hand. In other words, inherent good human nature, because that would denote that anywhere else where there wasn't Christianity, people didn't have any morality. So I don't know. I think
morality is just a different morality. You know what I mean? There's ideas. Do me a favor. Go look on Google and take a map and just type in, you know, women's suffrage. You know, where can women vote? Where are women considered equal? What you're going to find there, where was slavery abolished? What you're going to find is a little outline of where Christianity had spread through the world, and places where there's still slaves and places where women are still subjugated to men. You're going to see outlines of places where Christianity never took root in the East. So guaranteed, bro. Guaranteed.
Here's another ideology, and I want to point out, and this is kind of what I was talking about. Gretel made a comment as well, and I want to highlight her comment because it goes along with my thought as well. It took white allies to dismantle slavery. Slaves did the organizing and convincing. And what I think is important, and I think rhetoric matters, right? I think rhetoric matters. And one of the things I think that is highly American is that the achievements of white Americans always tower over the oppression of other people. So you know what I mean? And so the idea of white achievement and black oppression, so that white people always look like, well, man, white people created the problem, white people solved the problem. And I say that that's not true. And I think
what's the problem that white people created?
Slavery in America. Slavery in America. Slavery in America.
A worldwide inheritance. See, this is a narrative, bro. You just believe this narrative that gets passed around from people. It just ain't true.
Okay, hold on.
White people did not invent slavery, man. It's in the Bible before white people even were mentioned.
You're missing the point. If you buy a business, a 7-Eleven, and you implement structures and things from other 7-Elevens, are you going to keep the things that are going to produce more stealing, more killing? Are you going to learn from what you've seen in other countries? I mean, from other 7-Elevens, and implement the best things in what you do? Or are you just going to take the easy way out and just so for you, what you're doing is making an excuse making an
I'm
excuse.
not defending them. I'm just contextualizing.
But your context by default is going
But
to.
Jason, go deeper. Here goes the thing. This country was based on freedoms. The irony is this country was allegedly based on freedoms.
That's true.
As it was based on. So they seem to know, right? The founders seem to have a good idea. And when you go King George and the Crown and the colonists, they seem to know about oppression. These white folks seem to have a good idea what it was like to be religiously persecuted and socially persecuted. Yes. But yet somehow we're persecutors.
They wrote about it, bro. It's in their writings. Go read their letters. They talked about it. They struggled over it. They debated each other. It took a long time to change the trajectory to get to where we are now, bro.
So let me just say like this real quick. Let me say like this real quick for you, Jake. Because Jake, I believe that you're not trying to defend slavery, but maybe the misunderstanding is that when we say American slavery and then you defer right away to say, well, it was all over the world.
No, he said white people created slavery, and that's just factually incorrect.
That was wrong. He didn't mean that. That was wrong. That would be wrong. Go ahead, Angelo. I'm sorry.
Right, but every time we talk about slavery, it's come back to, well, it's existed all over the world. Well, it existed before.
And we inherited it. And it doesn't now.
Factually or not, we're talking about the United States. Even if it came wherever it was, to always go back to that feels, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from that, as if you're saying, well, it's what we started with, so it's what we're going to keep. And rather,
I never said that.
But Jake, you know what type of slavery we're talking about. So when you do that, you're not dumb. You know what we're talking about. Right. The chattel transatlantic sub-Saharan slavery that we're talking about was invented from Western Europeans.
Hold on. Let me just say this real quick.
Late 1400s.
Stop. If we're going to talk, you are not going to talk to me like you're my dad, bro. And you're not going to accuse me of lying subtly. I'm being straight up sincere and honest with you guys and putting myself out there. And I got a lot of friends that I could be offending right now to be on this show. So you owe me some respect, at least to when you talk to me, to know that I'm being 100% genuine with you guys. It's not comfortable to be the only one with, first off, the only one that's, I believe, really trying to actually represent something and being attacked on four sides, okay? So don't accuse me of being disingenuous and being too smart to know better, okay? We read different books.
But you know what we're talking about. So I don't know why you keep appealing to historical slavery, and it always existed. You know what we're talking about.
Here's chattel slavery, which existed.
Right. That did not always exist.
And this is this is the only one issue that we've actually that has caused any real contention per se or whatever. So and definitely appreciate you being here.
Just so you guys know, I got no contention with anyone in here. Chaz, especially love just coming out. My contention is with John just insinuating that I'm being disingenuous, because that's not true.
Yeah. Okay. No. So, and I think, and I feel the same way. I think what John and what Angelo are saying or have said are kind of the same things, in that it's like if I say somebody ran my daughter over with a blue Honda Civic and killed her, and then you say, oh, it was a white Civic. What? Like, why does that matter?
No, that's a bad analogy. All I'm trying to do is give you guys the context of what happened when our nation was founded. That's all. And I'm trying to point out that because of Christianity, we don't have slavery anymore. Christians didn't invent it, but they did end it.
So we say that, but then what that also does is it negates the non-Christians that were enslaved people that didn't accept Christianity as their religion, that led some of the uprisings, the revolts that came to some of this. And so what we can't do is say that Christians were the only ones that thought that
I agree with that.
We needed to end. And I think that is kind of, and again, and I'm glad that we came to this kind of like apex or whatever, because I think that some of that unwillingness, I guess, to hold on, and that's why we got to keep driving at it, to say, wait, because it doesn't sit right with me. Right. And so, and I think when we go all the way back to some of these ideologies and we bring this to modern day 2020, and we have evangelicals who are staunch Trump supporters, which is interesting that you are not, You are not necessarily a Trump supporter.
No, I'm not, because I'm a conservative, and I can outline that for you. That's what I thought we were going to talk about. I didn't know we were talking about slavery. I would have read up on it.
Read up on it.
It's something that got brought up. So, but I think, and I think for me, it goes back to what we kind of originally, what the goal was to look at, and I think to talk about slavery is important, even as it pertains to evangelicalism, because this is still a topic in America in 2020. Slavery just looks differently. Slavery by a different name is what it's called. Like it's just a different name. Now it's called mass incarceration. So we still have slavery, and we still have a wide body of evangelicals that are ignoring the issue, just like what happened before. So you look at slavery, you look at issues of voting, when you look at redlining, those things were largely supported by what some people would call we
lost Chaz.
Yeah, oh man. So let me so here's a comment, and then Jake is not trying to defend slavery, Kyra says. He's trying to defend Christian white supremacy in the United States. But I don't think Jake knows that he's defending white. Just listen. Hold on. Okay. I don't think that he knows that he's defending white supremacy. He doesn't see that they could have ended slavery ended slavery in the quick minute, the way they overthrew their sovereign. Oh, I wonder if he's saying sovereignty. Respecting your king or queen was part of the tradition then. That didn't take 400 years for them to get rid of. And I think and again, what you were talking about was being correct about how slavery ended up in America, that it was not invented by Americans.
Yeah, that's just a narrative that gets passed around. I hear a lot, everyone says stuff like that, but it's just ignorance. It's just people who it's just a narrative that goes around that people believe. There's a lot of narratives. But I'm not interested in the narrative. I'm talking about what actually really happened and the real struggles that people actually really had, at the time. Just like we look back now, we just had the history. We just had the anniversary of Hiroshima. What was it, like today or yesterday? And we look back, it's like, man, we nuked somebody, like just a city of like normal citizens. That's crazy. But at the time, no American citizen thought that was a bad idea. They're all like, this is how we got to end it. They thought differently than we do. It's just not that simple. You know what I mean? I'm not supporting any type of white supremacy. I'm talking about ideas. You want to talk about white supremacy? We could talk about it, because I got ideas about that too.
You know what I think? What I think, Jake, and then what I think is being said is that by default, that is what it looks like. That is what happens, even though that might not be your intention. And that's why I can see you like, man, that ain't me. But I think that, so even like to say what I'm saying about Christianity abolishing slavery is what you're saying about slavery in America. So I'm saying to say that Christians abolish slavery is to disregard all the enslaved people that fought to have it done, that didn't have a voice. And so the enslaved population was the one who actually wanted slavery to end, but no one would listen to them. And so abolitionists had to join that cause necessarily, because the enslaved people didn't have the resources or whatever. And we're in the same position right now. We're in the same position right now, that there is a new form of slavery called mass incarceration. And so what we're saying to evangelicals is the same way that that white Americans, Europeans that were here came aboard and became strict abolitionists and actually became co-conspirators. The whole idea of allyship, I think, should go out the window. Co-conspirators that say we need to set this record straight as it pertains to overrepresentation in the prison population. And evangelicals need to step up to the plate. If we really believe if evangelicals really believe the things that they say, then we need to step up to the plate and start defending the rights of the unheard. We can't stick to the top three. You see what I'm saying? So
that's what you're saying, but I think that in order for evangelicals to do such a thing, they would have to actually believe it's true.
Sure.
So there's a convincing that needs to take place. If evangelicals are convinced that this is a particular way to go, that's where they'll go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't think that I haven't personally been fully convinced of it. And I read a lot of arguments. I got the new Jim right in my closet. I'll pull it out right now. What's that?
Fully convinced of what?
The prison industrial complex theory, you know.
Okay.
I mean, I see it kind of, but you know, there's it also seems like there's a little bit of mythology in there too. You know what I mean?
Jake,
yeah.
I've worked in it 14 years in the adult level and 4 years in the juvenile. And I'm gonna tell you right now, and I was somebody who kind of drank the Kool-Aid on the other side. You know what I'm saying? Just to survive as an employee, at the lower level. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's real.
And so you're saying
it is what it is.
Just to clarify, you said you drank the Kool-Aid, and that was like your way of participating in it, like without feeling guilty.
Jason can tell you, we had conversations. Like, I had my absolute belief that this structure was necessary, and that it had, certainly had issues, but it had its good elements and necessary elements, and that and at the end of the day, the prison industrial, it's so deep, but just know it's real. Now the bottom line is, much like we were talking about earlier with slavery and Christianity, I guess Christians as a group seem to be slow to catch on. And I guess what is it, like Angelo said, it seems to be people's pockets. When people's pockets are being aligned or being lined, it seems to be okay. But when something's prudent to change, then that's when it happens. So I don't know. Again, as a non-believer, I don't know if Christianity is something that appeals to me, because I don't see real belief. I just see convenient belief, convenient conviction.
Well, here let me and I think to I don't think that the gospel is necessarily the gospel message is not meant to delineate or to argue for or against slavery per se. The gospel message is supposed to change the position of a person's heart in the way that they feel towards the God that created them and their need for a savior. And from there, new ideologies are born. That is the reason why a person becomes a Christian and should soon after, maybe not right away, but there are certain ideologies that I certainly 100% don't believe anymore that I used to believe when I first became a Christian. So I can see how a Christian could support an ideology for a long time until they come into contact with a different ideology. The problem that I think that we face in 2020 that we're seeing right now, that has been put on display, that we've been seeing for a long time, is this idea that Christians can continue to adopt and believe a particular way of life, even though it just fundamentally cannot coexist with a biblical belief. And so, and we're not going to have time we're going to have to, I want to bring on, man, some of these, y'all see so Layla said, this country did not abolish slavery for moral reasons. The majority could care less. Some, like the Republican radicals, did, but they were a minority. They abolished chattel slavery because it was bad for the worker moving into industrialism. And so we see that slavery largely was ended for financial reasons. Here's what we're going to do, though. Here's what we're going to do.
All over the world, the British shot down ships carrying slaves all over the world because somehow that benefited their finances. It's just a narrative. And not only that, I think that this idea that gets perpetuated of white supremacy and all this is a narrative, man, and it's a narrative that's dividing our country. I know there are white supremacists. I met some, and I know the ideology exists. I'm not saying it doesn't, but man, I'm telling you, bro, it ain't a black versus white. We've
had 45 presidents. We've had 45 presidents. 44 of them look exactly the same. I don't know. Maybe not. It might be irony. Might be irony. I don't know.
I want to, man. I hope, please, can we? I want to have a specific talk about the idea of race and racism as well. What I really want to end with, if we can, what, because the kind of the goal of tonight, and this always happens, and these conversations, one of the things I think is because the conversations don't take place much, you know what I mean? So man, I just want to say, first of all, just super glad that we got a chance to have this conversation. I mean, because it just, and that real trying to get to the bottom of truth, or having, like, sometimes dialogue is tough and it's hard, and there's some deeply held beliefs, there's things that we agree on, don't agree on. But I want to Layla asked me to read the 13th Amendment, and I'm going to do that in a second. But I wanted to just say that Christians, I believe that Christians, if there is going to be change in America, or because there needs to be change, in America, I want to call all Christians to the table to recognize the current sins in America. We have to talk about the issues of race and racism and how that is carried on. I'm telling you right now, my dad passed away in February, 87 years old. And I'm going to listen to my father's actual lived experience in America before I listen to somebody else who read some books. You see what I'm saying? My dad experienced slavery for real. He experienced the effects of it. He lived through Jim Crow. He lived through all of that. My father remembers all of that stuff. He doesn't remember any of it now, but he remembered all of that stuff before. And I think that I think that's one of the issues, is that is that there's still voices that are being silenced the same way that they were being silenced during the time of slavery. And so I think Christians, because there's issues, Christians need to have these conversations. And I think Christians have aligned themselves politically, like John said. And I think what that has done to the church is neutered the church. I think by evangelicals saying that we have to be Republicans in order to, no, you don't. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous to say that. I think that there's things that we could pull from both sides, but I just want to, what's that?
Now, I thought we were going to talk about, I didn't know we were talking about slavery. I thought we were going to talk about politics.
It just morphed into that, bro.
It's okay. I'm down. You know what I mean? I do feel a little beat up by you guys, particularly, but I love you guys anyways.
Do you really? Listen, I was about to commend you.
Look, man,
I was about to commend you, Jake. You took it tonight. Your comment kind of veered the conversation, not intentionally, but you took it from all sides. But listen, we're not here to beat you up. We're here to try to get to some.
Yo, man, I just feel it's weird for me to feel like I gotta say I'm not pro-slavery. I'm not. So
you didn't have to say that. We didn't.
My pastor's black, so I don't want to get in trouble when I go to church.
No, man, man. Listen.
Well, there's comments like, "Oh, Jake's perpetuating white supremacy." That's the thing that shuts down conversations. That's rude, and it's just not true. You know what I mean? Like, to judge someone like that, even on a comment, is ridiculous. You know, like, you don't know what someone believes until you ask them. So I just wanted to say that. But ultimately, what I thought we were going to talk about was our political viewpoints in the defense forum, which I came prepared to do. I didn't want to talk about slavery, and part of this is politics. But I also believe fundamentally, and I will just say it, conservatives. I know very few conservatives who are Trump people. Very few. And I know a lot. The conservatives are not going Republican because they're ignoring issues or because they're blind. They're going towards Trump because of things like female penises. And when your kids go into public school, they're trying to talk them into like cutting their junk off, the idea is that there's no such thing as a male and a female. These ideas that like capitalism is somehow evil, where it's just like people agree to contracts and it's like you have liberty with your own money, you have private property. There ain't a choice. I don't believe, honestly, like in my right mind, if we're a two-party system, bro, they're voting Trump. There is no choice right now. You don't got a coherent left. It's crazy. And
where's their stance on private prisons, though? Where's their stance on private prisons? Which would obviously mean people are going to be like never before.
Again, that's a
where's
great.
your stance on police brutality?
Those are important things, and conservatives should be championing the idea that the state shouldn't be able to hit people or brutalize them. And most conservatives are very much anti-government control. They should be doing that, but what they're not doing is I'm listening to a town hall where they're saying a Democratic town hall where they're saying they're going to shut down a church because they're going to legally try to shut down a church because a church will not marry homosexuals. They're going to shut down the church. Like that's conservative. That's what conservatives are hearing. They're going to vote Trump. I believe Trump is probably going to win this next election.
I agree with you.
And it ain't because they're all white supremacists. Some of them are. Some of them for real are. And trust me, I have very stern convos with them. Just like, I mean, I've had some, and I've turned some over, honestly. But, you know, at least on the intellectual level, you can't change people's hearts. I believe that's God's job. But I'm telling you, there ain't a choice. The left is so let me challenge you guys. Since you guys are like, oh, conservatives got to do this. Why don't y'all go to the left and the Democrats and get them to stop being crazy as hell? To stop seriously. And when the Democrats stop killing babies and being crazy, not understanding economics, trying to steal people's liberties for real, like actual, you know, when that happens, that'll be the day I vote Democrat. But right now, bro, there ain't a choice. And you know that dude up there is a puppet. And he can't even say a sentence, bro. And they're just going to take him out and replace him with whoever the nut bar is behind him.
So you're saying Trump is going to be done? Because that's what you just described to me.
I'm saying Trump is the next. He's probably going to be the next president. If the conservatives, unless there's something that splits the vote, that's going to be it, man. The silent majority's there, bro. They're there. They're out there. You know, California won't.
I agree with you.
But they're out there, bro, and it ain't the issues you guys are talking about. I never when I talk to any conservatives do they bring up prison industrial complex and these even topics. You know what I mean? So it's the ideas are not getting out there is what's going on.
What ideas? What ideas are not?
The party that has those ideas has stupid ideas on top of it. Like you can't get into the inside of the cake and deal with it because the icing has got poop on it, bro. Like it's crazy.
Well, I think that. Well, so John, you want to? Why don't you give your last views? I think after that last exchange, I think there was some. I think y'all we need to see two white men fight. Y'all need to fight each other.
John, you know.
I'm sorry you got a little butt right there. I don't know. You know.
Hold on, man.
He switched his hat. He switched his hat. Oh man.
Put that white on white crime. Let's get it.
Is that a real thing?
I like it. Yeah. White people be killing each other a whole lot, man. You know who kills the most white people? White people.
White people.
Boy, y'all some savage, bro.
Surprise.
Savage. Go ahead.
You know, Jason, a lot of, and I've said this a few different ways, but a lot of, I think the problem, and I'm focusing primarily on American conservatives, but it certainly goes both ways, is the idea of American exceptionalism and how Americans are so far ahead of the game. We're the greatest things, you know, since sliced bread. And then it's Christians, you know, all the other stuff that Jake said that I clearly disagree with him on. The problem is going back and reading our Christianity, not through the lens of American exceptionalism, but through the lens of Jesus. I mentioned this passage last week. I want to close on it because I think this is fundamental to the gospel. And I actually kind of pushed back a little bit something you said, Jason, where you talked about the gospel coming about, you know, kind of changing the hearts of people. Jesus did not come to just change hearts. He came to provide a better way to be human. And so I'm reading in Luke 4. I said it last week. I'll say it again. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor, I often hear American conservatives define American exceptionalism as that favor. And I think that's what bothers me when the church is supposed to embody the politic of Jesus, a better way of being humans in the world. And so again, discerning the multiple different ways that it may fit. So I am pro-life. I believe in nonviolence. I would say Jake holds to a pro-birth policy, not a pro-life policy. That's besides the point. I do believe in that. I also do hold to a more of a traditional view of human sexuality, right? So that would probably put me in more of the conservative camp. But I do believe that all human beings have value and dignity in the eyes of God. And so that would then put me more in the liberal camp, right? But all I'm trying to interpret is this is Jesus' inaugural sermon for his public ministry in the four gospels. And I think as followers of Jesus, that should be our initial framework, not American exceptionalism, the Constitution, or any other interpretation therein.
Can we just make sure everybody characterizes me wrong all the way down before we leave?
No, man.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, please. I don't care about people who are born. Thanks for that one, John. You jerk.
You know what one of the things that I thought was interesting.
The pro-death penalty. We had this discussion, just you and I. You know that's true.
John, let me tell you, man, you're on my list, bro. I'm writing your name down right now.
Put it in bold.
He told us yesterday. He said, "Homie,
assassination list. I mean, he's out there taking
the crosshairs is on you now, John.
You're on the list, bro. The conservatives got a list, bro. When
put it in bold. Put it on top.
Put them crosshairs on that joint. So, Chaz, why don't you, Mr. I'm back, Chaz, Stephen, the heathen. Why don't you give us some final thoughts?
Again, let me commend Jake on coming on and really being the precipitator to the tangent that we went on. But I want to make clear again.
Wait, what was that word you did? What did you say? The what?
Precipitator.
Oh!
Hey, once every show he gets me. Once every show.
Dictionary.com, here we come. You know what I'm saying?
I'm from the hood. So,
precipitator.
I learned to read.
Precipitator. That sounds like something if you on a keto diet that you eat when you on a keto diet that you mix with bananas and cucumbers. Put some precipitator.
It was Christians that taught me how to read.
Huh?
Look, I said it was Christians that taught me how to read. So,
the truth of the matter is that higher education did come to America through Harvard, Yale. Those institutions were fundamentally, they were Christians in the beginning, but that's neither here nor there. Princeton, Stanford.
Oh, you're welcome. So you're welcome, Chaz.
Doggy, I've literally flunked out of San Diego City College, so trust. Literally. I want to commend you again for coming on and really starting, smoke and taking smoke. But I want to be specific. I don't want this to be couched as like some cliche argument about slavery, because I wouldn't want to be involved in that. So I hope, Jake, I hope you didn't take it as such. And I certainly hope anybody watching, this doesn't go down in history like we're somehow debating slavery. It's right. It's being right or wrong, morally, or that we were somehow trying to characterize you as a slavery supporter or an American slavery supporter.
Just so you know, I read it in the comments. I'm supporting white supremacy.
Okay.
So that's what bothers me. But what bothers me though. We can't have conversations with us about this without someone getting demonized.
Well, let me say this, just in defense. I think. Sorry about this, Chaz. Just real quick. This is one of the problems when comments are. When the person saying the comments doesn't have the opportunity to defend the comment. What I believe.
Bring them on.
That's what we're gonna do, and that'll be in my final statement. But what I wanted to say was that I think that there are things that are insinuated, even if they weren't purposely done that way. They're insinuated, and there are people, black people, people of color, that when they hear certain things like that, that is what comes up. And I think that's one of the faults as well of a lot of majority culture, is that majority culture doesn't accept the things that black indigenous people of color say when it comes to how we hear conversations about racism. So I don't think anybody was saying that you're a white supremacist, but I think it was just by default with some of the things that you were saying, it comes off that way.
Right.
And so more than just saying, no. Yeah. So
that's projection though. I want to take an objective approach to the situation. You know what I mean? I don't know anything about anybody until y'all tell me. And then I want to be clear: is this what you're saying, or is this not what you're saying? So
that's why we need.
I've been called worse though, so it's all good.
This is why we need to bring people. This is why, and that'll be my last comment. But you're so right, Jake, and man, you got to come back because this is good stuff. Chaz, finish. I'm sorry, brother. Finish what you were saying, man.
Anything that gets lost in translation. I mean, it's par for the course, and I don't know that we can always answer to that. But ultimately, I wanted to make sure that I make this clear again. I am here as the non-Christian, right? The non-believer, the non-Christian. So I want to make sure this is not necessarily an indictment of slavery per se, but the reason that I pursued it was because it's an indictment as you characterize yourself as a constitutionalist and you kind of based your political belief on such. That's what I wanted to highlight. And I kept saying, I'm not attacking you or just you. I'm attacking everybody on this panel and anybody who calls himself a Christian or who calls himself a follower or believer in Jesus. I just want to keep reiterating that I thought it was important to keep talking about, because if your political basis is such, then to me, it means everything. Because if you govern or if you vote for people who govern with that kind of belief or that kind of ideology, then that to me is everything. You can't hold that as your ideology and then somehow detach that from your voting or from the way you would govern if you were a politician or from the way you look at me or the world at large. So that's all I wanted to say. But great discussion, though.
The response is also to that, neither can you. Your beliefs are going to govern everything that you do too, whether you believe in God or not. So no one is free of that. Our presuppositions determine everything we do.
But I don't have any foundational beliefs. So
sure you do. You believe God don't exist, right?
Well, like I said, I don't define him. So if everybody here was to believe Jesus would do A, B, or C, I'm absolved of that. You all would have to succumb to the fact that you believe Jesus would do A, B, or C. So I think that's important, and that's the whole point of what we're talking about. Because when you feed that, when you found a nation on it, you put it on the money, you put it in the schools when it used to exist, and you literally pound that into people, you have almost created like this duality in religious belief, and I find it hypocritical at best, but destructive at worst.
We should talk about that. I want to hear more about that because I can't wrap my head around it. So I want to hear more about it.
Man, we'll be Sundays ain't stopping.
Do you want to is that it, Chaz? You got anything else you want to say?
No, that's all.
G-Lo.
I'm here, man. So there's a lot that happened. There's a lot that was said today. And there's a lot that was said today. This was nowhere near what I was expecting to hear or the path that we were going to go down. I'm happy we did, though. I think we definitely need to speak about it some more, online, offline, whatever. My reiteration would just be, again, that even when you are, and again, this is to you, Jake. First of all, thank you. Like everyone said, thanks for being here. I do appreciate you being here, even though we're kind of going back and forth 4-on-1 in a sense. But just to remember, I'm going to tell you how I'm taking whenever the slavery conversation came up and it was softened to others brought or others did, it feels like an excuse for it. I'm not saying you're pro-slavery or anything like that, but those words bring it into that direction. So whether you do understand it or not, I just want you to hear that that's what I internalized, and that's what brought some struggle to me and the conversation.
So I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying. So when I said that other people, what do you mean by that? Like when I distance myself from it?
No. Sorry. I apologize. Let me back up. So when we say American slavery, and then you say, well, slavery was everywhere in the world. That's what I'm talking about. That's softened.
So you felt like I was trivializing it.
Yes.
Right. No, that's not what I was doing. I don't believe the narrative. I don't believe the 1619 Project narrative that, Americans invented slavery and, and all these things. I know it was an important thing, but there was other things going on. Just like we got a whole lot of topics going on today. There's a whole lot of topics going on. I was just trying to contextualize it. I'm not trying to trivialize it. It was crazy and heinous, just as crazy and heinous, if not more, as abortion, which I detest, to the soul of my core, So, I mean, I'm assuming that we're Christians. I'm assuming that, we're on the same page as far as understanding the nastiness and the evil behind it. So I didn't come out like, because it's gone.
Yeah.
So, and no one here is promoting slavery, so we don't gotta, amp up on it. I'm just trying to help us understand that it was in a context and I have a reverse viewpoint than y'all have the viewpoint. Y'all have the viewpoint that like Christianity supported slavery. I have the exact opposite. Although there were some Christians that did, ultimately it was Christian ideas that destroyed slavery and brought it down. And without Christianity, it would still exist today all over the world, just like it used to exist all over the world. And that is the God honest truth, my belief. And that, you know, and that's again one of the reasons that I think that this country is great is because we did abolish it, and you know we're still having hiccups and drama for sure that needs to get resolved with contemporary issues.
Yeah,
you know, for sure.
I hear you, and I hear you, and I'm going to disagree as far as the Christians abolishing slavery in that sense, but we don't have to rehash all that. It's fine. It's fine. Actually, we're good. I'm gonna keep it pushing, y'all. We're good.
Who's this comment? The guy next to Jake is like John Brown, like the abolitionist dude who like he went to war.
She's talking about
that's
me,
the one and only.
John. She's talking about me, John, not you. She said the guy next to Jake, and we're both next to Jake. I'm taking credit for that.
Hey, okay, before we go, can I tell you a funny story about this?
That was you, John. Layla said, and Layla wants to come on so bad. I'm so tempted to send her the link. She said, I want to come on with Jake, man. Jake is off the chain. This is Layla. Layla's an abolitionist in the strict sense of the word. She's super involved. I really want to bring her on right now. I really want to so bad.
Well, I'm going to tell you this joke. I didn't know who John Brown was. I was like in my earlier years of my undergrad. And I was having a convo much like this in St. Louis pre-Ferguson days down in this area called the Del Mar Loop. And I was talking to a black nationalist, right? And I was just trying to share Jesus with him. And I didn't have a grasp of his ideology. And we're just chopping back and forth. And he's like, so do you believe people are equal? And I'm like, yeah, I believe people are equal. He's like, then do as John Brown did. But the only John Brown that I knew of was from the Bob Marley song, I Shot the Sheriff. So I was like,
Sheriff John Brown.
So I was like, what? Do it? We want me to shoot Bob Marley? And I said that to him, and he just looked at me crazy and walked away. And it wasn't for like another year or so in my own reading that I came across the story of actual John Brown. And I put that back together why that dude looked at me crazy because I didn't know what he's talking about. That's the only John Brown I knew, you know. So I thought that's funny.
So let me just one last piece. I hope we can talk about this stuff again. I hope that we can show a different perspective or a different point for you, Jake, because I struggle with the position you take on all of this, but lovingly, I hope that we can show you a different perspective on what's there. So.
And let me just say, in accordance with John, I completely believe that America's temporary. You know, I believe in God's kingdom is eternal, 100%. You know, I defend this country because I got daughters I'm trying to raise up in here. And I want them to be free, just like I want us all to be free and have 100% liberty, just like I want us all to have 100% liberty as God intended it. We didn't get to talk about that ideology, which I wanted to. I thought I prepared for it. I thought that's what we were going to talk about. So, first, I apologize if I wasn't as sharp talking on slavery because I just, you know, haven't talked about it for a really long time. As far as in a contemporary discussion. But you know, whatever we talk about next, you know, I still feel like I have yet to explain or I should say give an apology for as in a defense for the conservative viewpoint, you know what I mean, which is basically maximizing liberty to maximize human potential. So maybe we'll get to that, but anyways, besides all that, I 100% love Jesus before I love this country. 100%, you know, agree that y'all are my brothers, and I'll even include you in there, Chaz, even though you're not quite as attractive as us.
That's it. Well, now some of y'all they won't even get that. They won't have any idea where that came from. That was that was the debate that we had in our inbox. Chaz, please don't even talk about how. Just leave it alone. Don't jump on that, Chaz, please. Because where we went the other day with that, you guys realize that, this.
But no, I'm 100% with Jesus. 100%, man. I love the Lord. And so I love all you guys, man. Thanks for having me. And I don't feel, I'm not upset. I got very thick skin. Trust me.
Well, I think you are. I think you were a little upset. You know what I'm saying? You did kind of.
Just with John, because he was insinuating that I was not being genuine, which I was. Cool. Again, I'm just not, so John, if I didn't articulate very well, it's because it's been a while since I've been on this subject. So if it didn't come out very clear, that's my bad.
Good stuff. Well, so man, just in closing, and man, again, I just want to say thank you.
Jason,
yes.
John didn't close.
Yeah, did. I started.
He was the first one.
Oh,
John was like,
oh, paying attention.
John I think that was anarchist. I think when you I don't know if you were gone when he did it. I don't know what happened. But I said, John,
maybe, wasn't very good. Maybe for the first time it just sucked. I don't know. Go ahead,
Fair enough.
Yeah, Layla even said you was mad at John. Layla said you was mad at John.
Man, that was level 3. John and I's last conversation was level 8.
Yeah. No, and the reason why there's a lot of comments that I didn't show. And the reason why is because I wanted to sort of keep us, I wanted to purposely not go certain directions because I knew like what that would do. I want to try to be respectful of voices that are absent. I don't, if there are people who are saying, hey, if this affects us, we want to have our voice represented in the conversation. That's the reason why I didn't want to focus on abortion, some of these other things. I didn't want to do that because I believe that it's important for women who have ideologies with this stuff, that we can say what we want, but I think it's important. I think that it's a disservice that we get to not hear from women. And that's something that has happened a lot in America. We see that because up until 1920, white women didn't have a voice really in America. And then not till 1965 did America choose to give voice to the enslaved foreigners that were brought here to this country, didn't give them a voice.
So my only question for that, Jason, is: are you insinuating that a woman cannot speak unless you allow her to?
No. In this case, listen. In this case, yes, because I have control over who comes on here, and
you sexist, bro. I can't.
No. Because if
Chaz got me.
So I wanted to bring I wanted to bring Layla on so bad. And Layla, please, Dr. Green, you sisters, I want to bring these sisters on here or whatever next time.
This is a conservative ideal. Nothing is stopping them from doing their own show. This is it. This is real conservatism talk that I don't want to get into it, but I'm just saying, like,
nothing's they already have their own lanes and doing their stuff. They're all but because they're like my sisters, Tasha and Gretel and Layla and
I see him throwing smoke out here.
Huh?
I see him throwing smoke out here.
Yeah. So let me just say, man, I appreciate everybody for coming on. Thank you. For those of you who stayed and watched, thank you. For those of you who will watch later on, thank you. Jake, thanks for coming on, bro. This conversation kind of went a particular way. And I don't know, it just sort of happens like that. And I appreciate you taking the time to espouse what you believe. Obviously, I want to appreciate you for being here and for being willing to have this conversation. This is for a lot of people to do. This is what we were hoping for last week, and we didn't necessarily get that. What I did not want you to feel is ganged up on.
First off, I didn't want to say this to anybody, but I'm not interested in how people feel. And I know that sounds brash. And things like this, I want to know what you think. You know what I mean? What you think will govern what you feel. If we know that there's respect among us intellectually, you can say things that you can't normally say to people because we know each other, and that's a thinking thing. When I teach my students and they come up to me and they say, I feel this, I say, I'm not interested in your feelings. Feelings don't necessarily indicate truth or anything. So go back to your desk and come to me and say, this is what I think. So I know that you guys are genuine, and that's what I need to know to have these conversations. If I felt, first of all, y'all 4 did gang up on me, but that's okay. That's okay. No belief is worth having. No thinking is worth having if you can't defend it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't hold that against any of you. You know what I'm saying?
Can I finish my thought, you colonizer?
I gotta go, man.
I'm kidding. I don't care how you feel. like I gotta go. He bounced. No, but I just want to say seriously, thank you. This is, to me, has been fruitful. lot to think about. We obviously disagree on some things. I would love to bring some more folks on. I'm going to talk about a way to sort of have kind of a larger discussion with some other viewpoints. And, I don't know. I don't what we anyway, but it's been good. Thank you to everybody that sat and watched. I would definitely want to bring these two sharp sisters on ASAP, probably next week. We'll all talk after this about kind of where we go from here. What do we want to do? The idea of pull up, the idea of the pull up is just you pull up, and when you pull up, it just is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? It's like with anything, and we sort of plan for it, and that's okay. But it kind of went in a whole different direction. But really grateful to be able to have these discussions. I think that this is what people should be doing regularly, regardless, with respect, with dignity. You know what I mean? And I think that happened tonight. And so I just want to say thank you. So we will definitely continue this conversation. Not 100% sure how we will do that, but we will. And to everybody again that stayed and watched, that commented, to Gretel, Layla, Tasha, Dr. Green, Tanisha, who else here? Let me make sure that Priska joined in the beginning. Lori, thank you for being here. T, how are you, T? Thank you for being here, looking through the comments to see if I missed anyone. Tammy, thank you, Tammy, for joining in. We appreciate you. And I think that's it. That actually commented. I believe that's it. So anyway, so we appreciate it. We'll come back with some more commentary at some point again. Thank you so much. We're going to end the broadcast now. Peace. Thanks for pulling.